Now, we discussed yesterday that landmark decision against vaccine mandates in the Queensland Supreme Court. One politician who's been strong on this issue throughout has been Liberal Senator for South Australia, Antic, and he joins me now. Good to talk to you, Alex. You must be thrilled by the common sense of this court ruling, but also the repercussions that surely must happen now throughout the country.
Yeah, well, Chris, it is. It's a great start. 2 years ago, I think, on your show, we talked about this very issue, and I said I hope at some point we do see the day where the class actions roll out and the employers and the public government departments that put people through this are ultimately held to account. And it's very, very good to see this in Queensland. It's a specifically Queensland case in the sense that it relies on a local piece of legislation in that state. But nonetheless, it does, I think, show that there is now a broader understanding of what people were put through these mandates, and a broader understanding that it was never reasonable for people to be bullied and mandated into taking what was an experimental drug and a drug which, ultimately they had the right to say no to.
Yeah, it relates to human rights legislation. Most states have similar legislation, but in the end it comes down to the rights of the individual versus the government. Now, this was bankrolled, I understand, to at least some degree by Clive Palmer, who's been strong on these issues. Here's what he said after the decision.
We can celebrate because this is the first precedent in the Western world where the trial has gone the full distance, where the evidence has come before the court, and the court has resoundingly said that all of the directions made by government, in essence, are an abuse of process, abuse of power, and a trampling of human rights.
Now, I'm not in the habit of agreeing with Clive Palmer, but I certainly agree with him on this issue. In fact, he's been consistent on some of these COVID pandemic response issues, challenging state border closures and the like. The point here, Alex, is that you would be only too well aware that there are firefighters still in South Australia, in Victoria and New South Wales who can't get their jobs back. There are police officers who can't get their jobs back because they were sacked because they refused to take the vaccine. There are many nurses in this country who can't get their jobs back. Shouldn't we take the good sense of this Queensland ruling and ensure that state premiers right around this country get rid of these bans and welcome these staff back?
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, you're quite right. There are 150-odd health professionals, practitioners of various sorts in South Australia who are being dismissed and terminated, I understand, as we speak. This was never reasonable. It was always unreasonable and, in fact, as the Queensland Supreme Court now says, unlawful in Queensland. But it does highlight the futility, I think, of continuing on with this charade. I mean, most of the workforce in those areas are, some of them as few as 2 or 3 shots. Most of them, therefore, presumably are anti-vaxxers, as everyone, including myself, was called at the time, which was always a nonsense. So let's get back on with it. Let's get people back to work. We've got shortages of nurses in South Australia all over the country. We've got shortages of paramedics. Some volunteer paramedics still can't go back to work, if you can believe that, in South Australia. This madness has to be over. And moreover, I would say there need to be protections put into place so that this madness can never happen in the future. Please
bring it up in your party room, because neither major party is making enough of this.
Well, look, I think it's a topic that is continually discussed. I mean, myself and Senator Gerard Rennick, who's been an absolute trooper on this issue over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, refer to it all the time. And we are strong on that, and we will continue to be so.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining us, Alex. Senator Antic there. We need more from the party leaderships and, importantly, from these state premiers. Welcome these workers back. Don't fear having to pay compensation. Let the courts deal with that. You were wrong. Let them back.